Hello, hello, good morning. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Sunday 10 a.m. technique at the Beatrix Potter online crop. We've got surround sound going on, and I've got my camera to adjust. And just getting everything set up here. I hope you had a lovely night's sleep, and hopefully that 1 hour of jumping ahead, springing ahead, did not spring on you too suddenly. And I know people around here are all still kind of in bed. So just Joshua and I are up so far this morning. Good morning, Robin. Nice to see you're watching. You're up bright and early, ready for the day. And if you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. If you're watching later on replay, you can say replay or leave some sort of comment so I know you've been by. And this morning we're going to be looking at our featured collection for the month of March, which is the Honey Bunny, which definitely gave some motivation towards our theme for the crop for this month. And so we're going to be using some of the pattern paper. We're going to be using some of the Honey Bunny dots and some coordinating cardstock. And then we're also going to be using another featured item for the month of March, which is the stamp of the month, which is called Just Chicken In. I'm going to take a sip of water. Never fails. You start talking, doing a live video, and then you get a tickle in your throat every time. It's got to happen. Robin says she was up at 6, technically 7. Yes, yes. Good morning, Lynn. So we're going to be using this stamp of the month as well. So let's get started. If you noticed the title when you were clicking into the live video, we are making a book binding Z-fold card. So it's kind of like a book binding card and a Z-fold card got together and decided to be good friends. So we're going to be starting with not a coordinating color of cardstock for this collection, but it is one of the colors in the collection, and that is Acorn. And it's kind of close to toffee, but it has more yellow in it, which makes it look really good with all the beautiful yellows in the Honey Bunny collection. So this is Acorn, and this has been cut to 11 inches by 4 1/4. 11 inches by 4 1/4. And we are going to start doing our scoring on the dark side here, which is the true color side. The back side's a little lighter. And as we go along, we'll kind of manipulate it around. So it's kind of one of those kind of cards. We're just going to play around with it. So I'm going to line it up on my Versamat because the first thing we need to do is some scoring. So let me grab my scoring implements. And of course, you can use a scoreboard. I'm just using my Versamat, bone folder, and ruler for this. So we've got 11 by 4 1/4, and we're going to start scoring at 2 1/8. Now, the 8th lines are not marked on the Versamat, but they are halfway in between each of these lines. Those are 8ths. So we want 2 1/8, which is halfway between the 2 and the 2 1/4. So what I like to do is just put my scoring tool there and then bring my ruler up and make sure it's nice and straight against all of the other lines that are on the Versamat, and then just do a score line. So that is at 2 1/8. Then we're going to jump over to 4 1/4. And we're going to do a score line at 4 1/4. Just make sure everything's lined up. And then our final score line is at 5 1/2. So jump over to 5 1/2 and score there. So let's review those again. So we scored at 2 1/8, 4 1/4, and 5.5. Now I will be posting all of these measurements when I post the photo on the event page. So you'll be able to see those there. So now we need to do some folding on all these score lines. And when we're folding on score lines, we like to fold them with the bump side to the inside. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to, sorry, I turned it around. We're going to fold on that center 5.5 line. And we're going to fold it with the light sides together. We're creating a mountain fold. And because I don't use a scoreboard, when I fold things over, I make sure that all my little edges line up so that I know I'm as straight as I can be, and then crease that down. Use my bone folder to help me with that. Okay. Now, so I've got my solid back here, and then here I have my two other score lines. Both of these score lines, now that I've folded this, are going to create valley folds, which means we're going to push the score line down into the valley. So, so let's start with this one. This is the 2 1/8 inch score line. We're going to push it down into the valley, which lifts these up, and fold it back on itself. And there you can see a nice example of that two-tone cardstock. And we're going to crease that down, making sure we're all lined up nice and neat. Okay. So that was the 2 1/8 score line. Now we're going to crease on the 4 1/4 inch score line right here. Again, a valley fold. So we're going to push the score line down into the valley, which lifts the paper up and over. And make sure everything lines up and crease that down. So now you look at this and you think, well, that's a really weird card front. Most card fronts do not do that. That's not usually how they go, but that's how this one is going to go. Hey, Joanne, good morning. Oh, Heather's here too, and Deborah. Hi. Everybody's joining in. So remember how we said this was going to be a book binding Z fold card. So if you've ever made a card with a book binding, you know that that means that there's going to be a little section near the crease that is going to be adhered together. So instead of having our card opening right there at the center fold, our card is actually going to be opening a little bit farther in, like this. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to put some adhesive in this section right here. So we've got our large back panel, we've got our 2 panels here for the front, and then this strip right here, that is our book binding. So let's grab our adhesive, and we'll add a couple strips of adhesive on there. You could use liquid glue too. Nothing against that. And then this process is as easy as closing your card. So you're just going to take your front and fold it over and stick that down. So now you can see that our card opens at that spot that's farther in across the face of the card. Okay, so that's our bookbinding part done. Now we need to add a couple things. So the first thing we need to add is on top of that little bookbinding strip, we can add a piece of pattern paper, and I've got this lovely honey butter dot from the Honey Bunny collection, and this is 1 inch by 4 inches. Hey, good morning, Barb. Nice to see you're watching. And we're going to adhere this right in that section, in that bookbinding panel there. Let me just get the adhesive backing off. And then we can stick this in. We want to center it in the section. Whoops! Oh, that shifted right out of my finger. Didn't have a good enough grip on it. And there we go. So there's our lovely little Honey Bunny Swiss dot. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to bring in a piece of pattern paper that is 2 inches by 4 inches. So this one was 1 by 4. This is 2 by 4. It sounds like we're building something. And we're going to add some adhesive to the back of this. Just thinking I was probably off the edge of the screen. I tried to bring my camera nice and close for doing our card today, and it seems to have worked. So yay. So we've got this piece, and this is the lovely sort of watercolor brush plaid from the Honey Bunny collection. So we're going to open the front of our card, and we're actually going to stick this down to the right-hand side inside our card. And the reason we're going to do that is because we're going to see that bit from the front of our card. So we're kind of decorating the front, but at the same time, we're decorating the inside. How cool is that? So the next part we need to do is we need to turn this into the Z fold. See how this does this little mechanism? And that, well, if you look at it from the bottom, looks like a Z. That's where it gets the name Z fold. And it's also kind of like an accordion fold, right? So Z fold and accordion fold are about the same, except for an accordion fold can be a lot more than just a Z. You can make a whole big long zigzag lightning strike out of an accordion fold, right? Okay, so the next thing we want to do, we've got our 1 inch by 2 inch, sorry, 1 inch by 4 inch, 2 inch by 4 inch. Now we need a 3 inch by 4 inch. See what's happening there? 1, 2, 3. Super simple. This is going to be a great one to have up your sleeve for stash when you have to do a fancy fold card, because it's easy to remember the measurements, isn't it? 1, 2, 3. All right. To attach this floral panel, because there's nothing on here that's 3 inches. There's nothing. We need another piece of cardstock. So I've cut another piece of the Acorn, and this is 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. So 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. And we've got our lovely floral from the Honey Bunny collection that is 3 by 4. So we're just going to layer those two together. One on top of the other. Take my backing off. Look at those cute bunnies. It's always sad to hide the little bunnies, but I haven't really used this floral pattern yet, and I think it's super pretty. And it's going to look lovely with what we're going to be doing on a decoration for the front of our card. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to attach this panel to this panel. So it's all folded down, and we're going to attach it, but we're not going to attach it lined up with the end like this. We're not going to attach it lined up like this. We're going to attach it in the center. So it's going to be a little bit shifted over this way, and still show you the lovely pattern over here. Okay, so the easiest way to do that is to put our adhesive on this panel, because it's going to be fully covered. And that way we'll know we've got our adhesive in the right spot. So let's add that on there. And I'm going to do an extra one, because this is a piece that's going to get, opened and closed. And then we can take our backing off. There we go. Now what I like to do when I'm trying to center something that's bigger on top of something that's smaller, I like to use my Versamat to help me. So I've got my 6-inch line right here. And if I put just this panel centered on the 6-inch line, like so, make sure we're nice and straight. So we're using all the lines of our Versamat. Our Versamat is such a handy tool for doing all this kind of thing. So we've centered ourselves on the 6-inch line. Then we know that this is 3 1/4 inches. So we want 1 1/2 and 1/8. So we're going to line it up exactly centered using those lines, because we need to be 1 5/8 out from the center on each side, and then line it up across the bottom and then just lay it down. Now, if I use my handy dandy measuring ability here, then it is 5/8 of an inch from the left-hand side. So if that makes it easier for you, that's what you can do. Now, I did manage to put that on a little bit crooked, but because I've got 3 rows of tape on there, I'm not going to shift it for the tiny little bit that it's off. That's just not going to happen. So it's stuck down there good. We're going to leave it like that. Nobody will know. How are they going to know? Nobody's going to know, except for the fact that I just said it out loud. The last piece that we need to add to our card base on the inside is a piece 2 by 4 inches of white daisy. Robin's liking the card. It's a super cute little card, and I think it's not a difficult one to make. You know, it's just a Z fold with a book binding on it. And I like that the measurements are super simple. 1, 2, 3. We can all count to 3. So then we're going to open this up to the inside, and we're going to add this here as a place to write. But what we want to do is we're actually going to butt it right up against our pattern paper. And that will allow us to have the same amount of acorn showing all the way around on our card. Now, we could stamp a sentiment in here. I'm going to leave it entirely blank so I have lots of space to write my message. But there we go. We have created our base. Now it's just to have the fun of decorating. So the first thing I want to do is I want to stamp out one of the little chickies from the stamp of the month, Just Chicken In. This stamp set is awesome. You can get this stamp set for, I think it's $27.95, or if you place a $60 or more order, you can get it for the reduced price of $6.75, or if you are a VIP, you can get it for free with your $60 order. Fabulous, fabulous. Because Close to My Heart is ceasing operations in June, though, if you are not currently a VIP, you can no longer sign up to be a VIP. So, so the other thing is that this particular one does have an option of getting thin cuts for cutting out these large images. And there are different prices depending on whether you are a VIP or not. So you'll have to look those up because I don't remember what the prices are, because that's sort of a newer thing that we started. So I'm going to be using this little chick here that's got its little egg just been hatched, although the chicken looks pretty big compared to the egg, but it's very cute. So I'm going to be using my Intense Black ink for this, and I've got it loaded up on my block. Gonna just ink out my stamp, and then I should probably be using, you know, the backside of my Versamat, because that always works the best for stampy. But there we go. We've got our little chickie with our little egg. So that's the first step. We've got our little chick stamped. Then I want to add a little bit of decoration for the sentiment. And so I decided I wanted a fun shape. So I have this from my stash. I'm pretty sure you can no longer get it because it's been a while since this came out. And this is the Scalloped circle frame, but any circle will do, any scalloped-y thing, you know, whatever, you know, if you had a cool sticker that was a scallopy circle or whatever, you can even put a little square behind there. It's just for extra embellishment. So I have cut this out using peach cardstock. And it was peach cardstock that I had a weird piece of in my scrap. And so I've actually cut off a chunk. But that's okay. We won't see it on the finished product. And so let's come over here. And the other thing is this one cuts out a center, right? It's got that little center cut. And so I didn't necessarily want to have no center. I wanted a center, so I'm just sticking the cardstock back into the center. Easy peasy. What I want to do is I want to line it up on my card so that this cut part is not exposed to the free air. So if I stuck it way over here, then this would be all unsettled because these two pieces are not attached. So I want to make sure that my scallopy circle just gets on the edge of this so that I can adhere it down. Okay, does that make sense? And my little edge, now this is just for me because I cut it weird. This little edge is going to get hidden by my chickie. So I'm not worried about that. So I'm making sure it's in the right place. But because I have these two separate pieces, it makes it actually kind of easy to stick it to my card because I just put my frame where I want it. Then I come in with my liquid glue and I add some liquid glue to the center of my circle, like so. Then I can pop my little circle in there like that, stick it down. Then I can take my frame off and add some glue around my frame. And I've kind of got, you know, an idea of where it's going to go because that little center is there. And then all I have to do is line them back up again. So, you know, there are pros and cons to that particular die cut in this particular application, but it works for me. Use what you have, right? That's our motto. Use what you have. Okay, so we've got this nice little circle. Now, this little circle is trying to stick down. And because of the way that this paper is folded, well, I suppose I could do that. But while it's sitting here doing its drying thing, I'm just going to use a little stamp block to hold it down so that it's not lifting up and kind of pushing on that outside edge and trying to lift all my liquid glue. I don't want that to happen. All right. So we're going to scooch that over there. Let's take a look at our little chickie. I want to add some color to my little chickie, but I want it to be kind of subtle. I want him to look soft and fluffy. So for that, I'm going to bring in my honey butter ink and one of our little blending foams. Now this foam has been used for green and pink and yellow. And so all I'm going to do, because this little guy is little and this is a big foam wedge. Like if you compare the size of the chickie to this foam wedge, that poor little chickie would get obliterated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my own little tiny foam. So I'm just going to kind of push down on the sides and go like that and make a smaller little foam nugget. See that? Cute little foam nugget. And then I can dip it in my, stuck my thumb in it, in my honey butter. And then I'm just going to pounce all over my little chickie, adding some nice little honey butter glow because he's, you know, freshly hatched. He's just come out of the egg. So he's got a nice little honey butter glow about him. And just tap, tap, tap all the way around. And it has that sort of fluffy, fuzzy, newly hatched baby feathers chickie look. Right there. Okay? And then I want to add a little bit of color. You're right, Joanne. I made a chicken nugget. I want to add also a little bit of color to the shell. So I've got some Acorn, which is going to look nice with the color of our card base. And I'm going to do the same thing again. So this one's got some dark green and some, I don't know, whatever. And then we've got some Acorn. So I'm going to do the same little trick where I squish it down and make my own a little nuggie of foam. Okay. And I'm just going to color inside my little shells. You know, shells are not always the same. So I don't want to have a really big dark blob somewhere. So I'm going to just gently touch it on my paper off to the side. And then I'm going to lightly pounce just on the shell. I'm going to do the same thing. One off and then lightly pounce on my shell. And that's just going to make a little bit of speckly goodness. I'll lift that up so you can see. So that was the Acorn. So you can see there we've just added a tiny little bit of color to that eggshell. Now some eggs are bright, sparkling white. We had chickens when I was younger and they had brown shelled eggs. So this is kind of a speckly brown egg thing that's happening giving it a little bit more character. So then what I want to do is I'm going to come in with my tan blend and then just the lightest color of my Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend marker, the tan blend, and I'm going to add a little bit of color to his beak. Maybe I want the mid. A little bit of color there and a little bit of color to his feet. We're going to use the mid. Yes, that's the one I want. Like that. And then just for a little bit of something extra, I'm coming in with the ice gray, the lightest color. So, ooh, what is that? There's something liquidy. I don't know if there was some kind of residue on the inside of my marker. Maybe it was the other one. Anyway, got something on there. So we've got our ice gray, and so we're going to do a little bit of shadows, So just around the edge and the bottom of this shell, we're going to put a little shadow, and we're going to do the same thing on this shell, just a little tiny bit of gray on the edge, and then around here on his face, under his beak, down this side of his body, around there, maybe a little bit under his wing, a little bit there, and then a little bit on his feet. And that's it for that. Oh, let's do just under these little ground lines, like that. My marker's getting low, low, low. And that's that. So now we can do some fussy cutting, or we can use our die cut. I didn't buy mine with the die cuts. So we're going to do a little bit of fussy cutting. First, I'm going to cut out some interior bits. So I've got my X-Acto blade, and I'm just going to go around and cut out some interior bits. And that allows us to see the lovely pattern paper showing through from behind. You always want to be careful. You'll notice when I'm using a blade, I'm keeping it nice and flat on the surface. All my fingers are out of the way of the direction of the blade. You don't want to put your hand like this and then do that, because chances are you'll need a Band-Aid or worse. We don't want that. Although I do usually have a Band-Aid in my craft room. Then we're also going to cut some interior bits here. Just following there. And then along there. Who else does this? Gets out their X-Acto blade and cuts interior bits. Am I just the weird person that does that? If you don't have a thin cut that does it, do you do it? I know there are people like me who do it, but we're sometimes few and far between, and some of us don't want to admit how weird we are. Then we're going to come in with our scissors, and we're going to do the fussy cutting. So let's go around. We're going to leave a little halo around our image. I'm probably leaving too much because I was accommodating for the marker, but there we go. All the way around. Just follow your lines. Pivot your paper. And when you get too much excess, just snip off to the edge and continue on. Oh my goodness, these little chickies are just the cutest, and you know I love my chickies. Maybe not as much as I love cows, but they're probably right up there. There we go. And then around the egg, all the way around, and we're done. There we go. You knew there had to be some fussy cutting somewhere, right? So let's bring in our card base. We've got our cute little chickie. Let's pop him up with some foam tape. And one more for good measure. And then we're going to stick them on here, but we're not sticking them on the circle. The circle is actually going to be sort of a extra decoration for our sentiments. So this little guy, let me grab my tweezers so I can see this without my fingers all in everything. So we're going to stick them on here. So that little flat edge that I left there, We're going to just cover that up. Nobody will be the wiser. You didn't see anything. Stick them on there like that. And then we're going to bring in a piece of white daisy that is 1 inch by 3 1/4. And I'm going to stamp the Happy Easter sentiment. Now, normally I don't really make Easter cards, but I thought, you know, my pen pal is always sending me lovely Easter cards. And, you know, there's a few other people that I would send an Easter card to. So let's make some Easter cards. So just going to make sure I've got that all linked up. And I'm using, I should have mentioned that, Glacier ink, which is one of the coordinating colors. And we're just going to center that. I got to bring it closer to myself. How much farther can I go before you can't see me? Center that on there. I think I went crooked, but that's as good as it's going to get. There we go. And we're going to dovetail our little ends. I love the script of this stamp. To do a dovetail, you want to snip right in the center, just a little snip, and then go from the bottom corner to the top of that snip, and then from the top corner to the top of that snip. And then we're going to repeat on the other side, snip in the center. And with dovetails, I usually never go more than 1/4 to 1/2 inch, even when they're big dovetails, because I find the larger the dovetail goes in, the more awkward it looks. I don't know why that is, but it just happens that way to me. So now what I want to do is add some adhesive on the back of this. A couple little strips. And we're going to place that on top of our little scallopy circle, which is going to help hold all our things together. And just tuck that on there like that. And then let's bring in some of these really cute honey bunny dots. Now, if you're on the website and you're looking, they are currently sold out, but they are coming back. So you'll just have to keep your eyes open for when they return. They were very popular because they have such lovely peach, glacier, limeade, and honey butter dots on them that who can resist, right? So let's grab some of these. We're going to add one there, and then maybe one of these honey bunny ones, honey butter for the honey buns. And then a little peach one up there as well. Just a little shine, a little fun on our card to finish it off. And there we have our Happy Easter bookbinding Z-fold card. We started out with our Acorn base, doing some scoring, creating that bookbinding portion right here, adding on our pattern papers from the Honey Bunny collection, a bit of white daisy on the inside for writing all our message. Now we do also have space on the back, so you could add a panel on there if you need an extra long message. And then the beautiful floral on the front. We used a nice little scallopy circle die cut from our stash, stamped up the sentiment in the Glacier for something a little different. We've got our little chickie that we pounced with our little chicken nugget sponges to add a little bit of soft color to his feathers and to the eggshell. And then, of course, our little honey bunny dots. I hope you enjoyed seeing that card come together and are inspired to create one of your own. And if you do, I would love to see it. So be sure to take a picture and post it in the comments where I post the picture of this card on the Facebook page and in the event. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your morning. We will be back on for Chat and Craft starting at 11 until 3. And have fun working on your challenges and playing the games. We'll see you soon. Toodaloo. Bye.